Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom, welcome back to today's Daf, which is Eruvin Daf Ayin Tes. We're on Ayin Ches Amud Beis, 3 lines from the bottom. And we are discussing a case where we have two chatzeros on either side of a charitz, this trench, running between the chatzeros, dividing them into two separate properties. The Mishnah tells us that each chatzer will make an independent eruv. They cannot connect with each other unless he filled up the charitz. So if he filled it with teven, with hay, and he was mevatel it, indicating, look, I'm leaving it there permanently, that fills up the charitz. It's no longer regarded as a trench, and now the chatzeros are considered to be one connected entity. And when it comes to afar, so if he fills it with dirt or pebbles, in that case we say, even if he didn't indicate one way or the other, he didn't explicitly say, look, I'm leaving it there, I'm being mevatel it there, that also works. So even stama, even undefined, unspecified, is considered to be batal. We view the charitz, we view this trench as though it's been filled, and now we have no more separating factor between the chatzeros. It says the Gemara 3 lines from the bottom. Mali afar, so if this charitz is filled with afar, we consider it to be plugged up and no longer separating. Va'afilu b'stama, even if it's undefined, unspecified, he didn't indicate that he intends on leaving the afar there permanently, even then we say it's batal and the charitz is considered to be filled up. V'atnan, we have a Mishnah which seems to say that unless he was mevatel it explicitly, the bittul will not take hold. The Mishnah speaks about a bayis shemil ohu tevan eitzeres. You have a house which was filled with hay or pebbles, ubitloi, and he was mevatel it, batal. Then it's batal. What are we speaking about? Let's take a look at Rashi, 2 lines from the bottom. Bayis says Rashi shetumas beis b'secha. You have a kazayis of a mace, and the kazayis of the mace, of course, is metame, b'maga, b'masan, even b'oil. So anything found under the same roof is a tameh. So what happens if you filled up the house, meaning you covered the kazayis from floor till ceiling without leaving any airspace to create an oil? So if you did so with bittul in mind, meaning I'm going to leave it there, that creates bittul. And what happens? Now this tumah, this kazayis sitting under this pile of afar tzreris is considered to be completely covered and enveloped. She'en la'oil, who doesn't have an oil. La'atzma. Ubekas v'oil ad l'orkei. What's the halacha if somebody doesn't have an oil? So, two things happen. First of all, the concept of anything found under the same roof won't apply because there's no roof here. It's completely plugged up from floor to ceiling. So since there's no airspace, so there won't be any tumas oil. Not only that, whenever we have a tumah inside a home, so anything under the same oil is tummy, right? But anything on the other side of the oil, on top of the oil, is not tummy because that roof terminates. That roof is mafsik, the tumah. It prevents the tumah from passing through. But if there's no oil, it's completely closed up and plugged up, then that tumah goes straight up, goes up in a straight line, goes down a straight line. So it passes through anything, even a roof. So anything directly above that tumah becomes tummy. So that's what Rashi is saying. It goes up till the rakia. If somebody hovers over that roof, directly over the kazayis, he becomes tummy. Why? The whole tumah she'en la'oil tefach, any tumah which does not have a oil airspace of a tefach above it, goes straight up. So we have a tumah in a home, and he filled it with tevan eitzeres, and he was mevatel, indicating that he's leaving it there permanently. In that case, it's batal, and it negates the oil. There's no longer a airspace. There's no longer a roof here over the tumah. The tumah goes straight up in a straight line. Anything in its path becomes tumah. So again, says the Mishnah 2 lines from the bottom. Batnan, haven't we learned in the Mishnah? If he filled it with tevan eitzeres, ubitloi, batal. Says more bitloi in. Apparently, only if he was mevatel, indicating that he's leaving it there permanently. Loi bitloi loi, but otherwise, if there's no indication one way or the other, there's no bitloi. And now in Mishnah we see that if he fills the charitz with offer, even bistama, even without any indication that he's going to leave it there permanently, it becomes batal, and we view the charitz as though it's fully filled. Says the Gemara, Amar Avhuna, Mantana Olis, Rabbi Yosi. That Mishnah Olis was authored by Rabbi Yosi. It's a different shita than our Mishnah, who holds that you don't need to have bittul beferish, even stam, even a presumed bittul is enough. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Yosi, if it's Rabbi Yosi, then if anything, Rabbi Yosi holds just the opposite, that offer is presumed to be batal. There's no need to have an explicit nullification. The Sanya. Rabbi Yosi Omer. So we have Tevin, we have offer. Now we're meant to know that Tevin is one step behind offer when it comes to bittul. Why? Because Tevin is presumed to be designated to feed this animal, etc. It's not presumed to be batal. Whereas offer is more likely to remain in place and to be batal. So Rabbi Yosi says like this: Tevin vein asad lafanoisai. Getting back to that case of the bias that contained the tumah. So if you filled it with tevin, ve'in asad lafanoisai, and we know with certainty, he indicated that he doesn't plan on moving the tevin out. He wasn't mevatel it. He didn't explicitly say, look, I'm being mevatel, I'm leaving it there forever, but we know that he doesn't need it. He's not planning on removing it. So what is halacha there? It's batal. Harehu kistam offer batal. It has a halacha like stam offer, meaning offer is a step ahead of tevin, even if it's only stam. If we don't know, we have no indication at all, one way or the other. Offer, which is more likely to be batal, to remain in place, even by stam offer is batal. So basically says that tevin, where he indicated that he doesn't plan on removing it, is considered to be batal, just like by offer, even without that indication, even with just a stomach. So two things are equated one to another. Now, offer of asal lefanaisei. When it comes to offer, and it wasn't just a undefined situation, it wasn't stomach, it was asal lefanaisei. He indicated that he's going to remove. We know that he wants it. He's going to take it out. In that case, it's not batal. Harei hu kistam tevin v'loy batal. This is equated to undefined tevin, which is certainly not batal. So in short, we really have four categories. When he's explicitly being mevatel, then regardless of the material involved, it's batal, whether it's afar or tevin. When he specifically we know, he indicates that he's going to remove it, it's asad lefanoisei. That's on the other side of the spectrum. We know he's going to remove it. In that case, again, it's irrelevant what we're speaking about. If it's afar or tevin, it's not batal. In a case where it's ein asad lefanoisei, he's indicated that he doesn't plan on removing it. Then we say that, again, regardless of what we're speaking about, it's batal, whether it's afar or tevin. So in these three scenarios, there's no difference between afar and tevin. Right? If he's mevatel, either way it's batal. If we know he's going to remove it, either way it's not batal. If we know he's not going to remove it, it's batal as well. The question is by stam, something undefined. He hasn't indicated one way or the other. Then we have a difference. Rabbi Yosi says, afar, which is slated to remain in place, more likely to remain in place, then even by stam it's batal. Whereas by tevin, which is meant to be used for his animal, that's presumed to be not batal. Therefore, when there's no indication, when it's just a stam, we say it's not batal. In any case, we see the Rabbi Yosi's shita is that by afar, stam, it's batal. So indeed, how could we say that the Mishnah there follows Rabbi Yosi's shita? The Mishnah that requires bittul is Rabbi Yosi. In fact, we see Rabbi Yosi holds just the opposite. He holds that you don't need bittul. It says, actually, we're meant to move things around a bit. The Madamar of our Mishnah of Eruvin, that when it comes to offer, even undefined offer, even stam offer is batal. Actually, that shit is Rabbi Yosi, who holds that stam offer is batal. But the Tanakama will hold that even by offer, you need to have bittul, just making that assumption, the fact that it's upper material, it belongs there. No, not necessarily. You have to explicitly state that I'm leaving it there permanently with a bittul, otherwise it won't be bittul. So according to Rav Asi, our mission Eruvin is following Shittas Rabbi Yossi, holds that even stam afar is considered to be bittul, and that's why when he filled a trench with afar, even if there was no bittul beferish, we regard it as filled up, and the two chatzeres are now connected. Rav Huna Bar Devisho Amar, he has another teretz. Tuma Shabbos Karamis. You're asking a kasha from Tuma to Shabbos? They're two separate contexts. Hanach is a Shabbos. Is a Shabbos is different. Dafilu arnaki nami mevatel inish. Over there, even a wallet full of money, a person's mevatel, it's muktzah. So when the arnaki is sitting there and you can't touch it, it's presumed to be bottled for the time being for Shabbos, because he has no use for it, he can't pick it up. Likewise, if you have afar, which is muktzah, even when there was no indication one way or the other, even if it's stam afar, we consider it to be bottled for the Shabbos. So it's presumed to be part of the trench. We view the trench as though it's been filled, and there's no longer a separating factor between both chatzeres. So according to this teretz, our Mishnah follows all shittas, because our Mishnah is speaking about Shabbos, where something which is muktzah is bottled for Shabbos. Whereas the discussion in Maseches Olos is speaking about a question of covering the tumah, not speaking about Shabbos. Over there, we have a machlekes whether or not afar stam is bottled. Rav Ashi Amar, Bayis acharitz karamis. You're asking a kasha from the house of the halach of tumah and the charitz in our Mishnah. They're two unrelated cases. Certainly, all agree that a pit, a trench, is meant to be filled up. Not meant to leave this the safety hazard sitting there. So it's meant to be filled, and therefore, if there's upper sitting in there, let's assume it's meant to stay there. And therefore, the charitz is considered to be filled up. All agree. There's no machlekes when it comes to our case of a charitz. Ela bayis limit time yikoi. However, a home, such as in the case of the tumah, is it meant to be filled? Certainly not. And therefore, over there, there's machlekes, and the Rabbanan hold that even if it's afar sitting in this home, let's not assume it's meant to stay there for all time, and therefore it's not but. So in short, we have a Mishnah which tells us that a charitz between two chatzeres filled with afar, even if there was no explicit bittul, we consider that afar to be batel, and it undoes the trench, leaving both chatzeres to be connected. Says the Gemara, three terutzim. Either following Rabbi Yossi Shita, who holds that afar stam is batel, just as he holds by the case of tumah, or since we're speaking about on Shabbos, all agree that something which is muktzah is meant to stay in place and is batel, at least for the time being. Or since we're speaking about a ditch, which is meant to be filled up, all would agree that when there's afar sitting in there, it is batel. Continues the Gemara, Nosan olav nesash ruach dalat. So Mishnah told us if he placed a plank across this trench, a trench which is between the chatzeres, and the plank which is 4 tvachim wide, that creates an access point to connect the two chatzeres. And they have the option, at least, to join together in one erev. This 4 tefach wide stipulation only applies where he placed the plank over the trench from one side to the other to create that ramp. However, if you place the plank alongside the length of the trench, so we have a trench which is, let's say, 4 tefach wide. So the gap, that space of 4 tefach, creates that separation between two chatzeres. Says Rava, this stipulation, this requirement of 4 tefach, that the nesa should be 4 tefach wide, is only if you placed it over the trench, from one chatzah to the other, to create that ramp. So you need a ramp which will supply Pesach, which needs to be 4 tefach wide. However, if you place it la'orkai, meaning he reduced the width of the space, of the gap of the charitz, by placing a neser, some type of board, next to the ridge of the charitz. So this is the charitz. So you placed it over here. Rashi says he supported it with some poles. So he placed it next to the ridge of the charitz, right over the space, right over the gap of the charitz, thereby reducing the width of that gap. It's no longer 4 tefachim wide. It's been reduced by this nesser. In this case, there's no need for the nesser to be 4 tefach wide. It could be 1 tefach wide, as long as the end result is that the space, the gap remaining from the board to the other side of the charitz is less than 4 tefachim, then you've removed the effect of the charitz. It's no longer a dividing factor between the chatzeros. And they can go ahead and be ma'arev one. This is only a requirement if he places it over the trench, but alongside afilu kol shunami, even if it's very narrow, it's still effective because he's just reduced the gap, the width of the gap, and made it less than 4 tefach. Continues the Gemara. So Mishnah tells us that the same concept of creating a Pesach through this plank, reaching from one side to the other, applies to porches, which are zu keneged zu, opposite each other. And now they have the option. They can join together in one Eruv, and if they want, they can have separate Eruvs, because this plank creates that access point. But the Mishnah stipulates that it has to be zu keneged zu, directly opposite each other. Amar Rava, Hoda Amars zu keneged zu in. This that we said, that this can only be applied if the gzus trois, these porches are directly opposite each other, in line with each other. Zu keneged zu in, yes, shloi keneged zu loy, but otherwise it doesn't work. So, for instance, you have 2 houses on either side of Shus Rabbin, and you have porches facing each other. But if they're not facing each other, the shloi keneged zu doesn't work. Or, says the Gemara, v'zu l'mala mizu nami loy, or if it's not on the same level, one is higher than the other, that also won't work. And the Mepharshim explained because it's hard to walk from one to the other. Even if you place a plank, it's precarious, it's on an angle, so this plank won't connect them. Says Rava, this exception, meaning the fact that it won't work when they're not lined up with each other, that's only le'amaran el sheyesh ben zelazeh shloisha tefachim. If they're misaligned 3 tefachim. So let's say when it comes to the 2 levels, if one is 3 tefach above the other one, then they're too far apart. Aval ein ben zelazeh shloisha. But if there's no 3 tefachim between them, then it's okay. It's regarded like a one long bent porch, and meaning it's close enough. They're aligned enough with each other that we can apply this plank connection to create a Pesach from one to the other. Continues the Mishnah. Mat bein shebein shtei chatzeros. We have a haystack positioned between 2 chatzeros, gavoy 10 tefachim, 10 tefachim high, which creates a mechitza. Ma'arvin shnayim, bein ma'arvin echad. We view them as 2 separate, independent courtyards. Each one makes his own eruv. Elam achilim mekan. The members of this chatzar can feed their animals from this side of the haystack. Ve'elam achilim mekan. And the members of the other chatzar can feed from the other side. Nismait hatev masar tefachim. Now let's say the haystack has been reduced to less than 10 tefachim in height. Then you have a problem. The mechitza has been nullified. Then ma'arvin echad, they only have one choice. They can join together in one eruv, ve'ma'arvin shnayim. They can no longer make 2 separate independent eruvs. Let's take a look at Rashi inside. Rashi is right off to the side. Masnisin matbin, godish al teven, a pile of hay, umafsik al pnei richav kol chatzeres, separating between the chatzeres, completely separating the chatzeres. Mishnah says this mechitza creates a separation, but they can go ahead and feed their animals from either side. Now, what's the chiddush here? Why would I think otherwise? Says Rashi, we're not concerned. Perhaps by allowing them to feed their animals, it's going to cause a reduction in the height of the mechitza. What happens if it comes down to less than 10, you have a problem. Now, both chatzeros become joined together, and they undermine each other's Eruv. They need to make one joint Eruv. So perhaps that would happen, but the maska datayu, they won't be mindful, they won't realize, and they'll continue carrying. Says Rashi, we're not concerned. Why? The ha'afilu imit, even if, say, the animals eat and reduce the height of the haystack to less than 10 tefachim, that in itself isn't necessarily a problem. It depends how long along this haystack is this reduction present. Even if it was reduced to less than 10, if that low portion of the haystack doesn't stretch for more than 10 amos, then it's okay, because fine, there's no mechitza, but it's a Pesach. They won't interfere with each other. Why? Up until 10, it's called a Pesach. So the concern would only be if the behemoth eats that much. He brings down the height of the haystack, number one, to less than 10, and that reduced height stretches along more than 10 amos. In which case, it's no longer a Pesach, it's a Pirza which connects the Chatzeros. Says Rashi, the Chiddush in the Mishnah is that we're not concerned about that. Why? Let's assume the animal doesn't eat so much throughout one Shabbos. Therefore, there's no concern feeding the animal from the haystack. However, if somehow that did happen, that it was brought down to less than 10 tfachim, and it runs along either the entire chatzar or the reduced portion is more than 10 amas, in which case the mechitza is no longer in existence, they have to make one erev. It says Rashi, in the smat b'choil. That's, if it happened during the weekdays, then next Shabbos they have to make one erev. But certainly if it happened on Shabbos, it's too late. They can't go ahead and change the erev, which must be done before Shabbos. Continues the Gemara. Omar Rav Huna. Mishnah tells us you can feed your animals. Provided that he doesn't fill up his basket to feed his animal. Why? Perhaps let's see Rashi again. So it's this first Rashi in the Gemara, which is about 10 lines down from where we're holding. It says Rashi shalitim b'yadayim. The kupasa, you shouldn't actually fill his basket. Why? He might take too much. Dilma shakal tuva. Perhaps he'll remove a large quantity of the hay. Umamit le me'asor. By doing so, he'll bring it down to less than 10 tvachim. Become a taltal b'chatzer ha'asur. And this will result in carrying in a chatzar where you're not allowed to carry. Now, what about our Mishnah? How can he feed the animal? Our Mishnah is speaking where the animal itself is coming to eat on its own. And there we're not concerned. We're not concerned that the animal is going to reduce its height to that extent. Why? The behema kali achla. Maybe it's a bit at a time. Meaning, it seems from Rashi that when he serves his animal, we're concerned that he's going to remove a large quantity to account for all possibilities. Perhaps the animal's going to be very hungry today, so he'll remove a large amount, and by doing so, perhaps he'll bring down the mechitza. But simply allowing the animal to eat, firstly, as Rashi said in the Mishnah, let's assume he's not going to eat that much. And Rashi in the Gemara adds another element, even on the account that he does eat a large quantity, but since it happens incrementally, a bit at a time, that will afford the owner enough opportunity to notice. Look, the mechitza is going down, down, down. Oh, it's below 10, let's stop carrying. So it's something that he's going to notice. Whereas if he just removes a large quantity at once, perhaps he won't even turn back to see what happened. And he'll continue carrying in the chatzar, even when there's no proper mechitza. So again, Rav Huna says, you're allowed to have the animal eat on its own, but don't actually fill up your basket manually. Says Shari, but to position the animal at the haystack is allowed. We're not concerned that perhaps due to the fact that he's engrossed, he's involved in feeding the animal, he'll go ahead and remove and actually manually fill the basket, which he's not allowed to. We see that's not a concern. But Rav Huna himself told us, in the name of Chanina, that we have such a concern. One is allowed to place his animal over grass. The animal is allowed to feed off the ground on Shabbos, even though it's a malacha for a person. So Tosfos in Shabbos, Kufcha Beis tells us that the name of the Sifri, that the pasuk says Laman Yanuach Sharcha, animal is meant to rest. And although we know we're not meant to use an animal for malacha on Shabbos, an animal is meant to rest, but Yanuach means he's meant to rest and relax. But preventing him from pulling out grass on Shabbos is It's considered to be painful and inconvenient for him. So you can't go ahead and prevent the animal from pulling out grass. Certainly the animal's allowed to do that, despite the fact that it's a malacha. But not only that, you can actually place him on the grass on Shabbos, because although you're involved in feeding him, pulling out grass and malacha deraisa, so we're not concerned that the owner will come to do that. However, says Rav Huna, "Ein mamad adam es behem al gabi muktzah b'Shabbos." You can't place him on top of muktzah. We're concerned that, being that it's only Yisad Rabbanon, due to his involvement, he might go ahead and actually lift the muktzah to feed his animal. So if that's the case, how come in our Mishnah, we're allowed to have the animal, we're allowed to place the animal near the haystack? Perhaps let's be concerned that due to his involvement in feeding his animal, he might actually remove some of the hay manually, which he's not allowed to do, as Rav Huna told us. So why is there no concern in our case? Says about the koim la ba'apa va'az la ba'achla. We're not speaking about actually placing the animal there manually. The koim la ba'apa, he positions himself in front of the animal and causes the animal to move to that direction. Va'az la ba'achla, the animal itself goes there and eats. So since that's just a minimal involvement, we're not concerned about getting overly engrossed and coming to do the Issa D'Rabbanan and actually filling a basket. Says the Gemara, is that so that you're not meant to fill your basket with this teven? V'atanya, we learned in a brisa, which seems to indicate that in a similar situation, we're allowed to fill a basket with teven. Bayis sheben shtei chatzeros. If we have one chatzir on one side, one on the other, and there's a bias separating the two chatzeros. Now, it seems that, Farshim explained, it seems like, for instance, we had 3 rooms separating the two chatzeros. You have a middle room, a room to the right, a room to the left, and the room to the right belonged to the chatzir to the right. The room on the left belonged to the chatzir on the left. The room right in the middle was shared territory. Says the Brisa, if we have this middle room, this middle bias, a bias in the Gemara's terms means a room. So if you have a room between two chatzeros, umil'ohu teven, he filled it with teven, meaning not the entire house. He made it a mechitza from floor to ceiling, somewhere in the middle of that middle bias. So that creates a mechitza between both sides of that bias. So now, the chatzeros are completely separate. Even in that home, we have a separation. So the members of this chatzer can use up until the haystack on this side. The members of that chatzer could use that middle home up until the haystack on their side. Because we have mechitza separating. Ma'arvin shnayim, ve'ein ma'arvin echad. So they make 2 separate areas. They're 2 separate places of residence. They can't join together. We have that teven, that haystack, separating them. The member of this chatzar can approach the haystack, fill up his basket, and feed his animal. Likewise, the member on the other side can approach the haystack, fill up his basket, and feed his animal. So you see that filling baskets are allowed. But just a minute, let's finish the brayso. What if, as a result of all this feeding, the haystack has now come down, been reduced from a height of 10 tefachim, and is no longer considered a mechitza? Shnei masurim. The members of both courtyards can no longer use that middle chatzar, which is now a joint usage area, not separated with a mechitza. They can't both use it unless they make a eruv. Case otherwise. So, what should he do if he wants to at least allow his friend to use that middle home? Somebody should have use of it, from it. How's he meant to do it? Noilas Beisai. So the member of this chatzar to the right, will lock the door to his room, Let's remember we have 3 rooms or 3 houses, and they're all open to each other. The middle home is a joint territory. The home to the right belongs to this chatzah. He's going to lock the door, which gives him access from his house to the middle house. So by locking, he disengages from that middle house. And he relinquishes his usage rights of that from that middle home, grants it to his friend on the other side, and as a result of this, he can't use that middle home. And his friend can use it. We have a similar concept relating to a pit filled with hay, shebein beis tchumei Shabbos, situated between 2 boundaries, 2 city boundaries. So it's right in the middle, half in this tchum, half in the other tchum. And the halacha is that members of both city can approach this pit, feed their animals from their side of the pit. Just as we have the case of the matbein sitting in this home, which is accessible on both sides and can be used to feed their animals on either side. Okay, K'tanimias, at any rate the Brisa says, he can fill up his basket, he can fill his basket. So you see that filling baskets are fine. Unlike Rav Huna, who is concerned that filling baskets might lead to reduction in the mechitza height. Says the Gemara, there's a difference. Amri, so the Bnei Yeshiva said, the answer is like this. Bias, when this haystack is present in that home, even the ikar tikra, since there's a ceiling there, ki mifchis min kuralei milsa. He'll notice when the haystack has been reduced, has come down to less than 10 tefachim. He sees the gap between the haystack and the ceiling getting bigger and bigger. So it's something discernible. And there's no concern that he won't be mindful of that fact. Therefore, they can fill their baskets without concern. However, in the case of the haystack situated outdoors, between those 2 chatzeres, as in the case of our Mishnah, lo yuminkir le'milsa, it's not something discernible, and perhaps they'll keep on taking without realizing that the mechitza has been reduced to less than 10 tefachim. Since there's no ceiling there, which gives you a clear parameter to work with, it doesn't have that indicating factor. So there's a chashash that it's going to come down without him realizing. So in short, if we have a matbein inside a home with a ceiling, there's no concern with consuming from either side, because the ceiling will indicate its height. Whereas if you have a matbein sitting outdoors, Rav Huna says, feed your animal, provided you're not actually placing him there, you're just maneuvering him in a way that he gets to himself. But you can't go ahead and actually fill your basket for concern that the mechitza might be reduced from its proper height without him realizing it. Continues the Gemara. So getting back to the case where the 2 chatzeres were separated with these homes, and inside the middle home there was a pile of tevin. As long as you have a proper mechitza there, you've separated the home into 2, and they can all use the home. He can use his side, he can use his side. But if it comes down, it's less than 10 tefachim, then the mechitza is no longer there. The home is now a joint usage area which can't be used without an erev chatzeres. So the Brisa uses the word asara tefachim. Says the Gemara, asara shari. But if the mechitza is 10 tefachim high, it's okay. Va'afagav, the midlaya tikra tuva. Even if, suppose the ceiling is very high up, and the mechitza asara doesn't actually reach all the way to the ceiling, that is sufficient to create that separation. Because the Brisa only stipulates the 10 tefach requirement. Apparently, the height of the ceiling is irrelevant. Is that the case when you have a mechitza, asar tefachim, doesn't reach the ceiling? That creates a proper separation. Shma mina. It appears that we have a raya from here. That mechitza she'en magiyas tzukra, shma mechitzas. Even mechitzas that don't reach all the way up to the ceiling are considered to be valid and effective mechitzas. And what's wrong with that? Let's see Rashi. 2 lines from the bottom. Says Rashi, shamas mino mechitzas, hamafsikas bebayis, ve'en magiyas tzukra, shma mechitzas. Apparently, mechitzas, and Osirisa speaks about, points out that we're speaking about mechitzas arai, temporary mechitzas, such as a haystack. So we see that temporary mechitzas, which are coming to create a separation within a home that has a ceiling, which really overrides those mechitzas. We say these mechitzas are effective Shma mechitzis, v'tiyufta, it's going to be a refutation. Demand the Omar Perkador, to the Shita, who told us earlier in Daf Ayin Beis. Regarding that halacha of those 5 groups who spent their Shabbos together in this large size hall, large size room, with mechitzis, with temporary mechitzis, erected between the chaburis. And the Gemara there tells us the mechitzis yud shori beis hillel, that the mechitzis are 10 tefachim high. Beis hillel allow them to transfer objects from one subunit to the other. Why? Because since the mechitzas don't reach up to the ceiling, they don't provide proper separation and regard the entire traklin as one unit. Apparently, our Gemara negates that shita, because our Gemara tells us that even when you have a mechitza 10 tefachim, which does not reach the ceiling, despite the fact that the ceiling is enveloping the entire area, you don't say it's considered to be one unit. Rather, we say the area on this side of the mechitza belongs to these people, and the area on the other side belongs to the other chatzah. So it's going to be a kasha on that shita, which says that unless it reaches the ceiling, we don't separate the areas. Amar Abaye, says Abaye was speaking about a mechitza that actually reaches up to the ceiling, in which case it creates a proper separation. Speaking about a home which is actually higher than 10 tefachim, but it's not too high. It's high 13 tefachim minus a bit. V'teven asor, and the hay is 10 tefachim high. So since it reaches up to within 3 tefachim of that ceiling, the loved connects it. So it reaches the ceiling and separates the 2 areas. He says like this: even if we're speaking about a house which is merely 10 tefachim high, and the haystack is actually 7 and a bit, which puts it within 3 tefachim of the ceiling, there as well it's going to work. The kol pachas mishleisha k'lavadami. Anything less than 3 is considered to be closed up and connected. So even if the mechitza here is not even 10 tefachim on its own, it's just a bit more than 7, the concept of a loved will serve to connect it to the ceiling and create a mechitza. Now, the Brisa spoke about making sure that the haystack doesn't come down to less than 10 tefachim. So you have the number 10 as a requirement. So it works according to Abaye, because according to him the mechitza was actually 10 tefachim high. But according to the other shita, why mention 10? It wasn't 10 to begin with. It says, Abaye, who understand according to Abaye, that's what the Brisa makes mention of Asara. Where does number 10 come in? Mitaris Asara, from the halacha of Asara. Meaning that the haystack, which was 7 and a bit, actually connected to the ceiling through Lavid, in which case it was regarded like 10. You must make sure that it retains that status and doesn't come down, meaning it began with 7 and a bit, it doesn't come down less than that, because then it can no longer connect to the ceiling and will not be regarded as mechitza. Now, if that should happen, and the mechitza becomes null, shnei masur, so now both chatzeros can't use the house in between. Says the Gemara, apparently this happened on Shabbos. So although during Shabbos it was mutter to use the home because of that mechitza, the fact that the mechitza has now been nullified, it changes the equation, because now we have an influx of new residents. The chatzeros have now connected and they undermine each other's eruv. Shma mina, should we bring a right from here, the yurin haboim Shabbos asur or isrin, that if residents show up on Shabbos, they make things asur? And Rashi brings this actually machlekes early in Daf Yud Zayin. So is this a riot to the shita that holds that it becomes asur even on Shabbos? Says no, Dilma perhaps the imit me esmal. This happened yesterday. So the haystack was brought down from 10 tefachim before Shabbos, in which case you entered Shabbos in this state of interference. There was no mechitza between the chatzeros, and therefore it's asa to carry. Case of the waisa. What can he do to allow at least his friend to use that home? No, he lives basically matur shusay. So he locks the door, he disengages from that middle home, he closes the door between his home and the middle home, and then he's mevatel. Tarti. Why do you need to do both? Why do you need to actually close the door and do bittul? One should be enough, meaning bittul should be enough. Says the Gemara Hachikama. This is what the Brisa means to say. Oy noilas beisa, and vatal sushusay, one or the other. Either he does bittul beferish, either an explicit bittul or an implicit bittul. So either he actually verbalizes or he shuts his door, which indicates, look, I'm disengaging from that property, it's all yours. Certainly both are required. You need to do bittul and then actually close that door. Why? Given the dashbeit, since he's accustomed to using that middle home, because he was using it while the mechitza was present, so he became accustomed to using it. Also to tuli. He might actually come to and inadvertently carry in that place, to continue carrying there. Therefore, if you want to prevent that from happening, close your door to disengage entirely. As Rashi points out, this Tana apparently holds that anytime a person does bittul, he needs to close his door in order to prevent him from inadvertently carrying in the location where he made the bittul. Taisus learns that, Taisus Akash, he says, it can't be. He says, people living in a chutzar, and one of them forgot to make an eruv. We know that bittul works. You're going to say he has to close his door, he has to stay home the entire Shabbos? So Taisus says, perhaps, he has to lock his door, but when he needs to go out, he'll open it. Then Taisus says, no, k'tzas nira, it appears that the proper approach is that dafka over here, you need to lock the door. Why? Because they were accustomed to using this home, this shared home, without an eruv, due to the fact that there was a mechitza there. So perhaps he'll inadvertently continue carrying there after bittul. But in a case where a person's living in a chutzah where everybody knows an eruv is required, right? If many people are living together in a chutzah, they can't carry out to the chutzah unless they make an eruv. So everybody knows a known fact. Then the eruv is required. So if he forgot to take part in the eruv, he'll know not to carry in the chutzah. There's no need to have that extra precaution to close up his door. Therefore, Taisa says it's a very specific halacha to here, where they would carry in that house without an eruv. So there was no awareness of a requirement of eruv up until this point when mechitza disappeared. Therefore, there's a concern, and they must have that extra precaution, close the door. But in a general typical case of people living in a chutzah where an eruv is required, and one of them didn't join the eruv, and he does bittul, then there's no need to lock a door. He'll be mindful of the fact that this place needs an eruv. I didn't take part in the eruv. I was mevatel. I can't carry in the area. Continues the Gemara. So if he's mevatel, what happens? He can't carry in that home, but his friend can. Who asa v'chaverim mutar. So no pshita, of course. That's what happens when you're mevatel. It's no longer yours, it's your friend's. Lo yitzricha, says more apparently we're speaking the hadar idach, ubat le'lechavri. That the recipient of the bittul, his friend, turned around after a while and says, look, I'm done using the house. Now, I'm being mevatel back to you. You can't do that. The Bryce is indicating, no. Hu asar v'chaverim mutar. When you do bittul to your friend, you can't carry, your friend can, and that status remains throughout Shabbos. You can't do bittul back and forth. The Bryce is teaching us, the ein mevatlen, the choiznu mevatlen. You can't be mevatel one way and then do a return bittul. A similar concept will apply to this pit filled with hay, situated between two boundaries, in which case we allow the members of both cities to partake, to consume the hay in this pit, provided each one takes from his side. Says from Pshita, why would I think otherwise? Meaning, the Brisa gave us two examples of joint feeding. We have the haystack within the home, that the members of both chatzeres can feed to their animals, each one on his side. And the Brisa continued, V'chena to'emer, another example of this joint pit, which can serve as which can serve to feed both animals. So it's more pshita, of course. Why would I think otherwise? Meaning, why would I think that there's more reason for concern in the second case over the first case? Meaning, in the first case, it was a concern about the matbein remaining 10 tefachim high, and we're allowed to go ahead and feed without any concern of it inadvertently becoming reduced. There's no concern. Likewise, in the joint pit, they can serve their animals without any concern that he's going to take from the other side. So they're both dinim d'Rabbanan, right? Erev Tchumen is the Rabbanon, Erev Chatzer is the Rabbanon. So just as we don't have any concern by Erev Chatzeres, why would I think that Erev Tchumen would carry a greater concern that the Brisa needs to go ahead and illustrate another example? Like Tzrich Rabbi Kiva. Apparently, we follow Shittas Rabbi Kiva, the Amar Tchumen D'Oraisa. The Isser to walk out of your boundary or to take your belongings out of the boundary is Mid'Oraisa. So perhaps since, in our case, it entails a Isser D'Oraisa, meaning they can't go ahead and feed their animals from that hay sitting on the other side of the pit, within the boundary of the other city. They can't remove it from the boundary of the other city. That's Isser D'Oraisa. Perhaps I would think, Ligzar, there'd be room for Gzeira Dilma Asla Chlufei. Perhaps they'll confuse things and they'll feed their animals from the other side as well, which involves Isser D'Oraisa. So this is a greater concern than the first example, which only involves Isser D'Rabbanan, Erev Chatzeres. So perhaps here it's worse. Kamash Shmuel, the Brisa teaches us no concern. And even in this case, they can feed their animals without concern of confusion. Continues the Mishnah. Keitzad Mishtatun B'mav. How do they go about to make a shit of mavois, to allow carrying from their Chatzeres to the Mavi? So the shittif really, what it really does is it combines together, incorporates all the chatzeres into one single usage area. So now we don't have a concern, because what was the concern? Taking from your chatzer, which is designated for the members of this courtyard, and carrying something from there into a alleyway, which is a joint area, servicing all the chatzeres, which is a sort of public area. So it appears like you're taking from one type of rishus to the other, which is reminiscent of perhaps rishus yachad, rishus rabim. The Chacham required the chatzeres to join together as one. You're creating one huge entity, one incorporation. And now we don't have this concern. It's not like you're taking from your chatzer to the joint area of the mavi. All the chatzeres are one usage area. It all belongs to this one single entity. So how we go about incorporating the chatzeres? How do we make shittiv mavos? Keitzad mishtatim b'mavoi. So they can all contribute their own food, or if he's a nice fellow, he can take his own food and grant it. Make a kinyan, grant it to the members of the Mavi. So the Mishnah will describe that case. Maniach as a chavis. He places his barrel full of food. V'omer harezu l'cho bnei Mavi. He announces, look, this is being granted to all the people in the Mavi. They all have a part, and now we're all incorporated through this food. Now, how's he going to give it to them? He has to make a kinyan. He can't just say, this belongs to them. How does he take it out of his domain and gives it to them? He does that through giving it to his adult son or daughter, so they accept it on behalf of all the other members of the Mavi. Or through his slave or maidservant who are Ivrim, who are Jewish. Or through his wife. But he can't do this kinyan using his son, daughter who are ktanim, who don't have ability to acquire to make a kinyan. Nor can he use the eved or shifcha who are knanim, who don't have that ability. Why? Their hands are like his hands, meaning they don't have the ability to acquire, to do kinyan, to be mezakeh. When he places it in their hands, it's like taking something from his right hand and placing it in his left hand. So he hadn't really taken it out of his possession, and it hasn't been granted to the other members of the Mavi. Continues the Gemara. Omar Rabbi Yehuda, Chavis shel shetufim mevois, tzorech lagbia min hakarka tefach. In order to be mezakeh, to give over the chavis to the other members of the Mavi, the one lifting it on behalf of the other members has to lift it off the karka, at least a tefach. Otherwise, it's still sitting in his property and never left his domain. Amarav, Hani Tarti Mili, the following two things, Sabi, the Pum Bedisa Amrino. It was said by the elders of Pum Bedisa. Rashi brings the Gemara Sanhedrin that this term is referring to Rabbi Yehuda b'Yeshivasai. Rabbi Yehuda and his yeshiva. So what were the things that they said? Chadaha, number one, the halacha that we just said, you have to lift it a tefach off the ground. Idach. The next halacha, Ha-Mekadish. When a person makes kiddush, how much does he have to taste? How much wine does he have to swallow? Im tam maloi lugmav yatsa. If he was time at least one cheekful, he's yaitz. Vimla, but otherwise lo yatsa. Omar of Chaviva, ha nami. Sabi the Pumbedis Amrinu. The following halacha also was said by the Sabi Pumbedis. The Omar Vidam Shmuel. Oisim medura l'chayi b'Shabbos. One may ignite a large flame, a bonfire, to warm up a woman who just gave birth due to her precarious situation. So it's pekuach nefesh and can be done on Shabbos. So they figured l'chayin l'chayolai. It only applies to a chaya, to this woman. But an ordinary sick person, he is not in such a great state of danger, doesn't need the warmth as much as he does, and you can't light the fire for his sake on Shabbos. That's number one. Number two, b'moisach shamim in. It can only be done during wintertime when it's cold, b'moisach chamaloi, but not in summertime. So that's what they figured. And the Gemara responds, it's not so. Itmar, we learned on Rabbi Yehuda Kessler, Amar Shmuel, hikis dam v'nitzdanen. Even a person receives the chills due to bloodletting, they can create a fire for him even on Shabbos, even during Tkuvas Tamas when it's warm, due to his precarious health situation. Omar Ameimar. I have actually another halacha number 4 in the name of Sabi the Bumbadisa. Hanami. Sabi the Bumbadisa Amreno. The Itmar, as we learned, Eze Yashera Stam. That's why we have this tree where we don't know if it was used for Avodah Zarah. What is considered to be presumed for Avodah Zarah? Omar Rav, the indication is as follows: Kol shekaymin sheminasa, a tree which the priests safeguarded, vein toimin perse, and they refused to partake, to eat the fruits. Apparently, it's been designated for Avodah Zarah. That's how you know. Ushmol Amar, even if it's you don't have that strong indication, even if it's only as follows. Kigoyin, for instance, the Amri, they say Hani Tamri l'Shichur. So, for instance, if it's a palm tree, they say, well, these dates are going to be used, are designated l'Shichur, the Beinitzrafi, for the beer of the Beinitzrafi, the Avodah Zarah, the Shasha Lebiyam Edom, which they drink during their day of holiday. So even that, which is not such a strong indicator, like Rav's indicator, would also be considered a sufficient sign that this Asherah was designated for Avodah Zarah. Concludes the Gemara. Indeed, the Sabi Pumbedisa concluded the halachas like Shmuel, v'amrli Sabi Pumbedisa. So some have that this is Ameimar speaking, that the Sabi Pumbedisa told me, Hilchas HaKaved Shmuel, the halacha follows Shmuel, that even this indicator is sufficient to designate this tree, to view it as an Asherah, which is designated for Avodah Zarah and is Aser Bano. Okay, let's review today's daf. We began with the Mishnah, which told us that if we have a trench between two chatzeros, that's a separating factor. Now they're regarded as two separate entities, which require two Eruvs. If he filled it with Teven and he was Mavatal, then the trench no longer exists. If he filled it with Uffer, even without indicating one way or the other, without doing a bittul, indicating that he plans on leaving it there permanently, we say the trench no longer exists, and the chatzar are now considered to be one continuous entity. Why is that? The Gemara gave us three reasons. Either we're following Shittas Rabbi Yossi, who holds that Afar Stam is batal, or as the Gemara said, when it comes to Shabbos, since the Afar is muktzah, it's meant to remain in place throughout Shabbos, and it's considered to be batal. Or, since he filled a trench, which is meant to be filled, so even if there was no strong indication of permanence here, since he filled it with Afar, and it's meant to be filled, it is presumed to be batal, and it removes the trench status. It's not considered to be filled, and the chatzer is considered to be fully connected. We learned about a haystack sitting inside a chatzar. The members of between two chatzeros, they can both use it. They can feed their animals from their side of the haystack. Rav Huna says, provided that he doesn't actually place his animal there, or fill his basket, which might lead him to bring down the height of that mechitza to less than 10 tefachim. The Gemara tells us if this haystack is inside a roofed area, then they could even fill it, because he'll see if the pile comes down, because he'll notice the gap between the pile and the ceiling widening. That's enough of an indicator to remove this concern of the mechitza inadvertently being brought down from 10 tefachim. We learned about the concept of bittul, and the Gemara tells us he has to lock his house. You can't do bittul back and forth. And we concluded with the Mishnah of Shittim Avois, where a person is going to be mazakeh his food, the other members of the Mavi. He must make sure that the person that's receiving it on behalf of the other members is a person who has the ability to acquire. And we concluded with 4 halachas in the name of Savi Pumbedisa. The first one was that you have to lift the Shittim Avois a tefach off the ground. Kiddush requires a cheekful, You can make a large fire for the sake of a chayla even during summertime. And how we're meant to determine whether a tree is an Asherah. In accordance with Shmuel, that once the dates had been designated to be used for Avodah Zarah, that's a strong enough indicator that Asherah is meant to be off limits.